Hi, everyone. Welcome to Great Target, the official podcast of the Research Chair on Mistreatment of Older Adults. My name is Kevin Saint-Martin. I'm the coordinator of the chair. And today we have the pleasure of having as a guest Bénédicte Schoepflin, who is the director of the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse. Bénédicte, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get to the heart of the matter, I'd like to hear a bit more about you. Can you let our public know who you are, what your training is, what your experience in mistreatment is?
Sure. Well, the funny thing is, I nothing really was, going to lead me to this originally. I grew up, but I did grow up in a family that was essentially an intergenerational home with three generations of women under the same roof. So I guess I was a little bit predisposed. Um, and I went to school for English literature in France, so nothing related to mistreatment technically. I immigrated to Canada. I moved to Vancouver. My first big job in Vancouver was to run a house museum, like a historical house. And while I was there, we had lots of volunteer programs that were intergenerational. So older people, particularly from an organization next door that was a senior center, and younger people and students working together. And it was really fantastic to see the dynamics and what happens when people of different ages work together and play together. And then on a personal level, around that time, my grandmother, who raised me, was had to move to a long-term care home. And when I visited her, I think that was my first shot of reality of seeing how things can be there. And I thought it was rather appalling because it did not. I felt like the residents were not really their joy and their quality of being and their social interactions were and social inclusion was not really supported. So that sort of ignited something in me at the time. And shortly after that, when I got back to Vancouver, I happened to land a job in communications for the Canadian Centre for Elder Law and the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse that used to work together at that time. So I've been now with CNPEA for a little bit over 10 years, and I've been its executive director since 2018.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Uh, the name of the organization says a lot about what it is, but Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse. But could you explain a bit more what its mission is?
Absolutely. Generally speaking, the mission is to focus on education awareness and policy change relating to abuse and neglect of older people across Canada. And so CNPA has existed in one form or another for 25 years. And it started as an informal group of professionals. They were people in different parts of the country, in different sectors, but who were all encountering the similar issues, very complex issues of elder abuse and neglect with some of the people they supported or cared for. And I think a lot of these professionals felt like there was not a lot of resources for their clients or for them as professionals. They felt isolated. And so they kind of came together as a community of practice. And the community of practice grew and then became formalized. And in 2011 or 2012, CNPA got a pan-Canadian grant from New Horizons for Seniors to develop the first bilingual, unique website about elder abuse prevention. And so this became a sort of a clearinghouse for resources. So whether you were looking for recent studies, best practices, contact information for support services across the country, all of it was gathered in one place. So that was, I think, what really kicked off CNPA and made it a more public-facing presence. And, over the years, our mission grew, and to integrate the idea of, the need for policy changes when it comes to mistreatment, in addition to education and awareness building. So as far as I know, we are still the only organization that is solely dedicated to elder abuse prevention or mistreatment prevention across Canada.
And we're seeing a bit more organization trying to prevent mistreatment here and there around the provinces, but something that is has such a wide range as the CNPA, we don't have anything else.
We try.
I think you're doing a pretty good job. Like you said, the website is a great spot to go see everything that's happening all around the country. And talking about the country, Canada is a big country. We have different laws, different political actions from province and territories. Uh, how do you navigate all those differences as an organization?
Well, we're to be clear, we're not trying to create a uniform way of doing things. That's not what it's about. Every part of the country has a different reality and different needs sometimes. But it's really about understanding the full picture, and also identifying things that work in one part of the country that could be adapted to another part of the country. So things like you were saying are very different from one province or one territory to the next. Depending on where you are situated in Canada, your access to resources or to services will be very different. And what is clear is that you can see in provinces where provincial governments have made the conscious decision to support the matter of elder abuse prevention and to put funds and to support organizations that work in that sector, you can see progress, you can see clear advances, and you can also see data because suddenly these organizations have the capacity necessary to track and to collect data and to provide a fuller picture. But as I said, it's not everywhere. There's still a lot of work to do. If you're thinking in terms of the diversity of the older population, whether it's linguistic or otherwise, that also will affect a person's experience of the help they can find. So if we could start at the very least by having a provincial or territorial mistreatment prevention network in every jurisdiction in the country, that would already be great strides forward, because these groups do play an important role when it comes both to education, in some cases, case management as well. So that's something we're working towards. And it's worth noting that even though this is a sizable issue that affects a growing part of the population in the country, there's still no federal Canadian strategy that addresses the question of elder abuse. So there's, one for gender-based violence, there's one for dementia, for instance, but there is none for elder abuse or mistreatment, which I guess I keep swapping between those two terms. They are one and the same, but maybe we can get into that.
Yeah, we have a previous episode where we talk about the different terminology and how it can get confusing real quick, and how different organizations, and I believe we named the CNPEA as an example, how different organizations within Canada have a different way of talking about mistreatment of older adults. So yeah, it kind of adds to the challenge of finding a uniform way to talk about the issue, because we don't even have the same words to talk about it.
Yeah, we're working on that. We're trying, it's in our name, so elder abuse is not fully going away because we can't quite rebrand, but we're making a conscious effort to try to use mistreatment more often, because I think it conveys a different set of concepts with it that are maybe clearer and maybe also less scary for people to think about.
Yeah, exactly. Beyond this notion of the words we use to talk about the issue, what would be the main challenges of working in a pan-Canadian perspective?
I mean, not to be a downer, but there are a few challenges. I would say one of them is to just stay on top of what's happening all over the country, be able to always provide the latest, most accurate, most relevant information to people. And also, the demand for information, the demand for presentations, the demand for informed advice, for consultations, etc., is growing, right? So we are still a very small, very, very small team with limited financial support from the government, and so that makes it tricky as the workload is growing. Another challenge I would identify, more generally speaking, is that talking about and educating about mistreatment is difficult in itself. It's a topic that, as I said, is scary for people. something that they maybe would rather not hear about. And it's also it's an issue that is often sort of downplayed or minimized. I think you don't hear about it a lot, or if you hear about it, it's really about a fraction. You might hear about financial abuse a bit more, and you might hear about frauds and scams a bit more, but the rest, the more complex kind of gray areas of mistreatment are rarely discussed. And so that leads to a lot of people thinking that it's somebody else's problem. It's not something that's very common, when what we know, the basic estimate, which is a very conservative estimate, is that it affects 1 in 10 older person over the age of 65, which is a lot of people. I think if we had any other issue in the country that affected 1 in 10 people, we'd be all over that. And I think the reason this is our challenge, the reason this is happening, is because ageism plays a really, really strong role in erasing older people and erasing the experiences they have and the issues they face. So that's something that we wrestle with and that we've integrated in all of our education and awareness efforts about mistreatment, is to talk about the ageism and to get people to realize that we sometimes have those blind spots that prevent us from seeing what is in front of us, because we automatically assume that if it affects older people, it's somehow less important.
Which is a funny thing, because we're all, hopefully, all going to be older people at some point. So
Correct.
just looking away from something that is for sure going to be your future is a bit concerning.
Yeah, it's the only ism that you really truly apply to yourself. Usually the isms are towards or against other groups of people. And this one, the two options are getting older or dying young. So we would be so lucky to grow older. And if we're going to grow older, we should all aim to make sure that, our experience of aging is a good one all the way through.
Absolutely. And intend not to be fully on the downer side, let's look to the other side of the coin. What are the advantages of working from a pan-Canadian perspective?
Well, the beauty of it is, it's a network that it's baked in the name. So that means a lot of collaboration. That means working beyond regional differences, beyond, well, it's a cliche, but beyond silos, beyond sectors. So it's really building relationships with people and organizations across the country and between themselves as well. It's not just CNPEA and other people, it's also all these groups together. So, we've obviously got some pretty tight relationships with provincial and territorial networks where they exist. But we've also, over the years, built relationships with people who are maybe more generally in what we call the senior sphere. So the aging sector, in gender-based violence, in caregiving, in health, in research, in government, and it's really kind of bringing all these people to talk to each other, because everybody is holding a piece of the puzzle. So it's an incredible treasure trove, of knowledge, and it helps us at CNPEA really kind of understand the issues more clearly, like the complexity of it all, and try to share it with people so that they can understand how, ageism, housing, health, quality of life, all these things are connected and have an impact on each other. And so being able to provide, informed opinions and data where it's available, for older people, for their families, for the people who support them and work with them, is really something that's, it's, yes, it is more complex. No, it doesn't go as fast, but it really, I think, in the end, has a much greater impact that way.
And how do you make sure that the data you find, the projects you lead, and all the treasure trove of knowledge that you find gets to the people who work in the field, the practitioners, the researchers, the policymakers?
I'm not going to say we have 100% track record, but we really try our best on this one. We were essentially because we're pan-Canadian, so I'm based in Vancouver. My board is all across the country. Our contractors and volunteers are all across the country. So we were virtual and very nimble as a result, long before the pandemic hit and everybody moved online. And we found that to be really helpful because we could be more responsive. We provide a lot of educational webinars that are free and accessible to all, where, some of them are specifically for older people. Some of them are more for professionals in different sectors, kind of sharing recent information, recent best practices, studies that have come out, tips on how to stay safe. We cover a wide array of topics. And it's also about kind of creating that sense for everyone that it's not just a top-down issue. It's not just, well, the government is going to pull this lever and then things are going to happen. There's also a lot that can be done at a ground level from to the way up. So it's really about getting everybody to feel that they have a role to play and that they do have a certain amount of power in what they can do in the work towards preventing mistreatment.
It always helps when the policymakers are involved, but it needs to start from the ground up if we want to make them realize that they have to move forward and make things happen. Beyond the things you just named and the webinars and all of that stuff that you do, are there other more concrete activities of the network that you would like to talk about and let us know more about?
Yes. Well, we obviously seek out regular project funding to be able to work on specific issues. So right now we're in the last year of a 5-year project that is funded by Women and Gender Equality. It's going to end in July 2026. And that project is leading to the development of best practices for anyone in human services. So the idea is to really integrate better trauma and violence informed practices in human services when dealing with older survivors of gender-based violence. Because at the current time, there are very few services that are entirely dedicated to older survivors who understand that extra layer of complexity that comes with family violence or gender-based violence when age is a factor. And so, the services, let's say general services that exist nowadays are very often more targeted towards younger people. It's like after 55, the issue disappears or something, and so the goal is to really change that so that these services that currently, are not necessarily trained and equipped to deal with the specific needs of older victim survivors now have the right tools to do so. So it's really kind of an equity focused project. I'm really excited about it, and we're going to be able to share tools publicly probably by the end of this year.
That's a very good idea, because now that you're naming it, you make me realize that I studied social work. I have a master's degree in social work. My partner is a social worker in the field, and I don't think I would have any idea where I could recommend an older person go in those cases. So yeah, that's going to be a useful tool for me too.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we did it because we realized that was something that came up often. It's let's say, and this is not to pick on anyone because everyone is full of good intentions. We're not talking about, we're not pointing fingers, but, an older person who shows up at a transition house or a shelter or a gender-based violence organization, for instance, they will encounter people who are trained in gender-based violence, perhaps, but who do not understand the complexities of elder abuse, who do not have, maybe the location itself physically is not accessible to an older person. The staff might be too busy to be able to assist someone who is staying in their shelter who has medical needs. And then think as well of the intersectionality question, of being able to really relate to a person in all their rich identity and do it well, as opposed to treating them like a number, or in this case, an age, just an age. So it's, that project was born because of the conversations we've had with members and people who are involved with CNPA who said, actually, yeah, I'm not really, I want to do my job well, but I don't really know how to do this. And it's really about making sure that a person who is seeking support, no matter which door they come in, because they might have a different path to the solutions that they need, regardless of which door they walk through first, gets an quality, equitable support that then knows how to take them through what they need to do to get to a level, to their version of safety, to whatever that might look like.
That's a very, very good point. Beyond this project, that for sure is going to take a lot of your time in the coming year. And I think you said before that you see ageism as a big point of focus in the future. But what other future direction do you see for the CNPEA?
Well, the first big one that we keep bringing back always, everywhere we go, is the pushing for, at the Canadian federal level, for a strategy on aging. A comprehensive strategy that is examining the question of what is it, aging in Canada, what needs to be taken into consideration. We have, a strategy on gender-based violence. It barely mentions older people. We have a strategy on dementia, which is also great, but sort of exists on its own. And it's time for a strategy on aging that includes a variety of considerations, including specific ones about ageism and mistreatment prevention. And of course, with the strategy comes, goals to meet and necessary funds to help organizations, support that goal. So I think that's a big one for us that we're going to keep advocating for. I think it is. We know that our population is aging. There is no getting around that, and that in itself is not a problem. I want to say, the problem is that we seem to be painfully under-equipped and kind of unwilling to consider what that's going to mean for a growing portion of our population. We have a growing older population, a growing population that is at risk of developing cognitive challenges, a growing population across all ages that is, living in more precarious situations, which is affecting their housing, their access to health, et cetera, and all these things kind of connect with each other and are, part of a whole set of situations that can affect a person's risk of experiencing mistreatment and also affect the type of support they might be able to access. So these questions are very pressing for us. And then if we kind of zoom out and go to the international level, we're part of a growing number of organizations that are calling for the development of a convention on the rights of older people at the United Nations. And that's really to be able to get, because again, there are conventions on the rights of children, people with disability, you name it, but there's not a convention strictly dedicated to the rights of older people. And that would mean that there is a mechanism in place that is internationally recognized that enshrines and protects our rights as we get older. And I think that's very important. So that's on our to-do list as well.
Thank you for that. On a more personal level, before wrapping up, I'd like to know what aspects of your work you find the most gratifying.
I find gratifying generally to work in the not-for-profit world. I think it is full of extremely passionate people who are also very practical, efficient people most of the time because they've learned to do a lot with not very much. Not that it's something I recommend. I think they should be, supported better, but that's a different question.
I think that's an advice you should also take for yourself.
Agreed. I will try to apply it to myself eventually. But I think, there's something about being part of a group of committed people who are hell-bent on making things better and changing systems so that we can all have a much better quality of life that is it helps get out in the morning when things feel not that positive around us in the world. And I think it brings a certain dose of optimism. And then, in my role at CNPEA, as I said, we do a lot of collaborations. So I work with people across a variety of sectors who are a wealth of knowledge, and many of them are older people, older than me, and they embody what we say all day, every day. That like they show me the what people have to contribute to the world after a long, full life, and especially a long, full life that is focused on helping each other and helping other people. I think that really what feeds us all and keeps us going.
That was very beautiful. Thank you. I think that was all for the question I had. I'm very thankful that you spent your time with us. I know you're very busy. We
It was my pleasure.
we keep meeting in different committees and working together, but we never really had the time to chat. So I'm very, very happy we had this occasion. You talked about a lot of stuff, a lot of activities that the CNPA is doing. Where can people go to find more about that, to see your webinars, stuff like that?
Yeah, so our website is cnpea.ca. That's the website I talked earlier in the podcast. So if you're looking for information about elder abuse, you'll find it there. You will also be able to sign up on our website to receive our newsletters. We regularly publish newsletters to, highlight resources or progresses, to share what our next webinars are going to be, etc. So it's kind of a good way to stay on top of what we do and to kind of participate to our efforts. You can find us on social media. We're usually at CNPEA on LinkedIn, X, and Facebook. And if you are interested in what I was talking earlier, the Future Us strategy, which is a strategy we put out 3 years ago to kind of outline what our goals should be as a country, key recommendations, and what every person can do in their own personal and collective capacity to contribute to the prevention of mistreatment, then you'll find it all at futurus.cnpea.ca.
Right. Well, thank you for being with us. Thank you, everyone, for watching this episode. We'll see you next time. And don't forget to like and share. Have a good day. Before you go, if you are in the province of Quebec, we just want to remind you that if you have concerns about mistreatment, if you believe you are being mistreated, if you witnessed a situation, or if you are a professional facing a complex situation, you can reach the mistreatment helpline by calling the 1-888-489-2287. It's a provincial helpline that is fully bilingual and available 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So 1-888-489-2287.